Hello, friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. The coffee had gone cold 3 hours ago, but I still held the styrofoam cup in my hands, feeling its imaginary warmth that was no longer there. February in the North Atlantic doesn't care about your comfort. The prep room at Kodiak Air Base smelled of JP-5 fuel, old sweat, and that particular kind of anxiety you feel when you know a call is coming but aren't prepared for it. I didn't have to be on duty that night. It was Harwick's turn, but his child was sick, pneumonia, real pneumonia, so I volunteered to take his place. I've been doing this job for 6 years, but I still haven't learned to say no. My wife Sarah looked at me with that expression, the one that says she understands but doesn't want to understand, and I kissed her forehead and promised to be careful. You always make that promise. It's the only lie they let you tell. The alarm went off at 2:47 a.m. Not a drill alarm, but a real alarm. The kind that makes your spine stiffen and your hands move before your brain can catch up. I had already put on my dry clothes before the briefing even started. A distress call came from the fishing vessel Nordic Empress, said Captain Voss, his voice clear and sharp despite the late hour. He was good at this, always professional, even if the lines around his eyes betrayed his concern. Last known position approximately 73 nautical miles northwest. One transmission, then nothing. Weather conditions are borderline. Winds up to 40 knots, waves between 3.5 and 4.5 meters. Visibility less than a quarter mile due to snowstorms. Crew count? It was Torres, our flight mechanic, already starting his pre-flight checks. Manifesto says 6, but the transmission was garbled. Anchorage Coast Guard sector picked up about 8 seconds of audio before it cut out. The communications specialist said it sounded like screaming. The briefing room fell silent. Not the reassuring quiet of professionals focused on their work, but a different kind of silence that weighed heavily on the air. It could be an EPIRB malfunction, Voss continued, referring to the emergency position indicating radio beacon that every ship must carry. They might have hit something. It could be many things, but they're out there and they called for help, so we're going to go get them. It was that simple. They were out there, and we were going to go get them. That was our job. The MH-60 Jayhawk rattled and shook as it lifted into the darkness, its rotors beating out their familiar rhythm against the night. I sat in the back with Torres, checking my equipment for the 3rd time, even though I knew everything was where it should be. It's a ritual, a meditation, something you do to keep your hands busy and prevent your mind from dwelling on scenarios where everything could go wrong. The pilot, Kellerman, had a solid reputation and had served in the Navy before transferring to the Coast Guard. The co-pilot was the younger but smart Lieutenant Prasad. It was a good team. You learn to entrust your life to those in the front seats because you have no choice. The flight was rough. The Jayhawk handled it well, but every up and down air current reminded us that we were very small creatures in a very big, very angry ocean. Out the window, I could see nothing but darkness, except for the occasional flashes of white where the snow reflected the plane's lights. There were no stars. There was no horizon. Only the green light of the instrument panel reflected in Kellerman's visor and the steady hum of the engines. We're approaching the last known coordinates. Prasad's voice crackled in my helmet. The infrared shows nothing. No heat signature. No debris field. Keep searching, Kellerman said. They're around here somewhere. We began our search pattern. a systematic grid covering the most likely drift area based on currents and wind. The searchlight sliced through the darkness below, illuminating the angry seas black as oil. The waves rose and broke in a way that deceived your eyes, making you see shapes that weren't there, ships lost in the foam. 15 minutes passed, then 30. The weather was deteriorating, and I could hear the tension in Kellerman's voice as he wrestled with the control panel. "We're running out of fuel," Torres said quietly. "This is the point where there is just enough fuel left to get home, where there is no luxury for error." 5 more minutes, Kellerman said. Then I saw it. It wasn't a boat, it wasn't debris, just a faint, orange light barely visible in the snow. Maybe a flare or a light from a life jacket. "Contact, 10 o'clock, about 200 meters, I shouted. The Jayhawk made a sharp turn, and the searchlight swiveled to follow my direction. The light was still there, bobbing on the surface, but as we got closer, I realized something was wrong with it. The light wasn't moving as it should have in 15-foot waves. It was too steady, too stationary, as if anchored to something heavy below. "I see it," Kellerman said. "Looks like a single flash. No ship in sight. Prepare for deployment." There it was. The moment when everything I'd been trained for kicked in, and the thinking part of my brain was pushed into the background by muscle memory and procedure. Torres opened the cabin door, and the roar of the wind and ocean filled the helicopter. The smell hit me immediately. Salt, diesel, and something else. Something organic and wrong. I couldn't quite place it. The rescue basket was lowered first, per standard procedure. We would lower it and see if anyone conscious enough to get in was there. A strobe light was attached to a life buoy, I could see now, the kind mounted on the railings of fishing boats. It was floating alone, empty, with no one beside it. "The basket is on the surface," Torres called out. No response, no survivors in sight. "I'm going in," I said, already hooked onto the rope. "Negative." Kellerman's voice was sharp. "We can't send divers until survivors are confirmed. Protocol." He was right. Protocol existed for good reasons, written in the blood of rescue divers who died doing heroic but foolish things. But that light, that empty life preserver, was squeezing my chest. "There was a mayday call," I said. "Someone from that boat asked for help." A pause, then, "Hurry, we're using fuel we don't have." The descent was always the worst part. That moment of transition when you leave the relatively safe environment of the plane and surrender yourself to the chaos below. The hoist cable moved smoothly and steadily, Torres handling it with the skill of someone who'd done this thousands of times. The rotor wind created a flat circle of water directly beneath the helicopter. But beyond that circle, the sea churned wildly. My fins touched the water and I unclipped, immediately feeling the ocean trying to pull me in. The water was so cold that, despite my dry suit, it felt like physical pressure. Fighting the current, I swam toward the life buoy, and when I reached it, I grabbed it and examined it closely. The flash was still blinking regularly, like a heartbeat. The life buoy was in very good condition. No signs of damage, no blood, no torn fabric, nothing to indicate a struggle or accident. But there was a life jacket attached to it with a yellow polypropylene rope. This stopped me in my tracks. You don't attach a life jacket to a life buoy, that's not how it works. If someone is in danger, they put on the life jacket or grab the life ring, but you don't tie them together like that. This was a deliberate, purposeful act, as if someone had staged it. Swimmer to helicopter, I found the life ring and life jacket, no survivors. The life jacket appears to have been tied intentionally. I recommend expanding the search area. Understood. Stand by. I was standing in the water holding the life ring when I noticed the jacket moving. It wasn't the waves. This was different. A pulling sensation, as if something below was gently tugging at it. It was testing me. I partially pulled the vest out of the water and saw that the rope disappeared into the darkness. Someone had tied the other end to something below. The rope was taut, not dragging, not slack. It was tight. My training told me to let go. My training told me that this was no longer a rescue operation, that it was not a rescue operation, and that rescue operations were done during daylight hours with proper support. But my training also told me that Coast Guard rescue swimmers leave no one behind, and that somewhere down there that rope was attached to something. I took 3 deep breaths, deliberately hyperventilating to saturate my blood with oxygen, then dove in. The moment I entered the water, the world changed instantly. The chaos of wind and waves vanished, replaced by a suffocating, pressure-filled silence that enveloped me like a fist. My flashlight sliced through the water with a narrow beam, showing me only particles, darkness, and the yellow rope stretching down, down, down into the darkness. I followed it. 5 meters, 10 meters. Pressure built in my ears and I swallowed hard to clear them. 15 meters, 20 meters. The rope was still taut, still reaching somewhere, and I was now too deep to turn back. At about 15 meters, my flashlight found something. It was the Nordic Empress, or what was left of her. The fishing boat hung suspended in the water column, neither fully afloat nor fully submerged, held in that dreadful limbo by something I couldn't comprehend. It should have either sunk completely or been on the surface. Physics wouldn't allow it. But there it was, its hull intact, its navigation lights still on. I could see them glowing dimly through the portholes, and the yellow rope was tied to the railing on the ship's starboard side. My lungs were burning. I had to get to the surface. I had to get up, report what I'd found, and let the dive team deal with it during daylight hours. But the lights were on. The lights were on, which meant there was electricity, which meant generators, which meant someone could still be running them. I swam to the nearest porthole and looked inside. The kitchen. I could see a table, chairs, and a coffee pot sitting on the counter. Everything was neat and tidy, as if the crew had stepped out for a moment. There were no signs of flooding, no chaos, nothing to indicate an emergency. But on the table was something that made my heart pound in my chest. 6 coffee cups, arranged in a perfect circle. Steam was rising from the cups. Steam, rising. 15 meters below the surface. I was out of air. I was pushed from the hull and swam hard toward the surface, my vision narrowing, my lungs screaming. The ascent felt like it lasted forever, and I had time to think about how stupid I was, how I had broken all the rules about free-diving depth and duration, how I had seen something impossible and stayed too long to watch it, and how Sarah would kill me if I died. I surfaced gasping for breath, and Torres had the basket ready. I grabbed the basket, let them pull me up, and as I rose into the air, I looked down at the water. The flash was still flickering, but now other lights were rising from below. 6 of them, orange and steady, were rising rapidly. Get me in now," I shouted. And Torres must have understood something from my voice because the winch motor was running loudly as they pulled me up at twice the speed. I rolled into the cabin and Torres closed the door. Through the window, I saw 6 life jackets emerge from the water in perfect order, forming a circle around the spot where I had just been swimming. They floated there empty, their flashes blinking in synchronized rhythm. "What's happening?" Torres began. "Go," I said. "We have to leave immediately." Kellerman didn't object. The Jayhawk made a sharp turn and accelerated, leaving the lights behind us. I was shaking, unable to stop, and it wasn't because of the cold. "What did you see out there?" Prasad asked. I couldn't answer, because what I saw was beyond comprehension, and saying it out loud would make me sound crazy. We were 30 miles away when a voice came over the radio. It wasn't our frequency. It wasn't any frequency that could possibly reach us. But somehow, through the static and interference, a voice came through. "Coast Guard helicopter, this is Nordic Empress. We hear you loud and clear. We need urgent assistance. We are taking on water. I repeat, we are taking on water. There are 6 of us on board. Our current position." And then he gave our exact coordinates, not where the ship was, where we were at that moment, 30 miles away. Kellerman looked at Prasad. Prasad looked at me. Torres's face had gone pale. "Repeat, Nordic Empress," Kellerman said carefully. "What is your current position?" Interference, then. "We confirm our position as follows." And again, he read our exact location in real time as we flew. He was tracking us. "We can't help you," Kellerman said, his voice tense. "Return to port for repairs and contact the Coast Guard anchorage sector for further information." "Negative, Coast Guard. We need emergency assistance. There are 6 people on board. Please hurry. The water is extremely cold and we can't hold out much longer." His voice was calm, professional, exactly as a trained captain's voice should be in an emergency. But there was something beneath the voice, something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. It was as if multiple voices were speaking from one mouth, layering over each other and trying to speak as one person. "Ignore my transmission," Kellerman said, and changed the frequency, but it didn't matter. The voice followed us, jumping from channel to channel, always finding us. "Please hurry, Coast Guard. The water is very cold. There are 6 people on the boat. Please, hurry." He repeated the same sentences over and over, with the same calm professionalism and the same terrible mistake. And with each repetition, the word "please" sounded less like a request and more like an order. Torres finally pulled off his headset and threw it across the cabin. The rest of us followed suit. We flew the remaining distance to Kodiak in silence, and when we landed, I saw my hands were bleeding. I had gripped the safety bar so tightly that my fingernails had cut through my gloves and pierced my palms. The debriefing meeting was a complete nightmare. Voss listened to everything, his face expressionless, then made a few phone calls. Silent phone calls to people whose names I couldn't hear. The official report, once filed, said we had responded to a false emergency call, found no survivors and no ship, and returned to base due to weather conditions and fuel restrictions. Our radio recordings were classified. The coordinates were classified. When I later investigated, I found that there were no records, no history, no evidence whatsoever that the Nordic Empress ever existed. But I know very well what I saw. I know very well what I heard. And 2 weeks later, while I was trying unsuccessfully to sleep at home, Sarah woke me up at 3 in the morning. I thought I was having a nightmare, screaming or thrashing around. But she was looking at her phone, her face pale in the light of the screen. "They're calling from work," she said. "The officer said it's an emergency. A mayday call came in, a fishing boat called the Nordic Empress." I didn't take the phone, I couldn't, because I knew what would be said on that call. I knew they would send a team, and that team would find a flashlight and a life preserver, and nothing else. And I knew that somewhere, 15 meters below the surface, a boat that shouldn't be there was waiting in water that should have torn it apart, with lights that shouldn't be working and coffee that shouldn't be steaming. And I knew they would call again eventually. They always do. What they don't tell you about being a rescue swimmer is that the ocean doesn't always give back what it takes. Sometimes it keeps things. Sometimes it plays with them. And sometimes, very rarely, it sends them back wrong, like a garbled signal, still containing the right words but arranged so wrong it makes your hair stand on end. The next day, I requested a transfer. It was approved without question, which told me everything I needed to know. They had heard of such a thing before. they had protocols for it. Silent protocols not found in any manual. Right now, I'm working on a search and rescue mission at a station in California. Warmer waters, a different ocean, a completely different sector. But sometimes, lying awake late at night, I hear that calm, professional, and wrong voice in my head, repeating the same thing over and over. Please hurry, Coast Guard. The water is very cold. There are 6 people on the boat. And the worst part, the thing that keeps me awake at night, is that I never actually heard them say 6 people. I heard them say there are 6 people on the boat. But after landing, the number kept changing in my head, as if someone was adjusting my memory in real time. First, it was 6. Then it became 7. Now, when I try to remember exactly what that voice said, this is what I hear. There are 7 people on the ship. And I count them. The 6 crew members of the Nordic Empress, plus that Coast Guard rescue diver who boarded the ship, peered through the porthole and saw something he shouldn't have. 7. My dry suit is still in the closet here. I still keep my gear maintained and ready. But I've set a rule for myself. A limit I won't cross. I no longer participate in night rescue operations. I voluntarily accepted to work the day shift permanently, agreed to a pay cut for it, and Sarah doesn't ask why because she knows I can't explain it without sounding crazy. But the real issue is that I know I'll eventually break that rule. Because the ocean is vast and patient, and it knows how to wait. It waited for me to see what I saw. It waited for me to tell people. It waited for me to run away. And somewhere out there, in waters too deep to dive without equipment, in darkness beyond imagination, there is a boat that shouldn't exist, with lights that shouldn't work and steam rising from coffee spilled by hands that drowned years ago. Or maybe they didn't drown. Maybe that's the real issue. Maybe that's the truly terrifying part. Not that they're dead, but that they're alive, still there, still guarding their ship, still carrying out their final orders to call for help, trapped in an eternal, unchanging moment. And when you look at something like that for too long, when you look at that particular abyss, it doesn't just look back at you, it learns your coordinates. Last month I received a package at the station. There was no sender's address, just my name and rank written in capital letters. Inside was a still damp life jacket with a note attached, written in pencil and smudged. Thank you for answering our Mayday call. We're sorry we couldn't see you when you arrived. Maybe next time. 6 people remain on the ship. No, 7. No, now 8. We're growing. We remember everyone who visits us. The water is very cold, but we have coffee. It's always hot. Please visit us again soon. We'll send you the coordinates. I burned the life jacket and the note in a barrel behind the station, watching them curl up and turn to ash. But burning something doesn't make it disappear. It just changes its form. And late at night, when the wind is right and the station is quiet, I swear I can hear it. The steady whir of helicopter blades that aren't there, the crackle of radio transmission from a boat that isn't there, and beneath it all, a calm, professional, patient voice. Please hurry, Coast Guard. The water is very cold. There are 8 people on the boat right now. No, 9. No, 3 nights ago, I rejected a call. 70 miles northwest of our position, a fishing boat in distress. A night operation. The weather conditions were unfavorable. They sent another team, younger, eager, young people who hadn't yet learned that some rescues are impossible. They found nothing. No boat, no survivors, no wreckage. Just a flashlight, an empty life buoy, and 6 life jackets arranged in a circle. No, 7 life jackets. I wanted to see the report. They wouldn't let me. And yesterday, something very strange happened. I was at home, trying to sleep again, failing again, when Sarah handed me my phone. It's the old station in Alaska, she said. Commander Voss. He says it's not an emergency. He just wants to talk." I took the phone, and Voss's voice sounded stressed, somehow older. "I need to ask you something off the record," he said. "About that night, the Nordic Empress. Did you ever—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Did you ever feel like it was still going on, like it was never over?" "Yes," I said, because there was no point in lying. "Good," he said, his voice almost relieved. "Then I'm not crazy. Here's the situation. Over the last 6 months, we've received 9 calls from that ship. Different crews, different nights, same result every time. Empty life rafts, synchronized life jackets, no survivors. But the calls keep coming, and each time the number changes. It started at 6, now it's up to 14. 14, I repeated. "There are 14 people on that ship," said Voss. "That's what the last message said. And here's what keeps me up at night. I counted them. The original crew of 6 plus the 8 rescue personnel who responded to these calls over the years. 14 total. Every diver who went into the water to see that boat, every pilot who flew in the search pattern, they're all included in that number. Keeping score. What do you mean?" "I'm saying you're counting us," Voss said quietly. "I'm saying that boat isn't in the water anymore, really. It's somewhere else, and it's using our protocols against us, using our training, our honor, and our refusal to leave anyone behind as bait. And every time we respond, every time we send good people to rescue souls that can't be saved, we add another one to its tally. So, what do we do?" "Nothing," he said. "We do nothing. We stop responding. We let it call into the void until it gives up and moves on. Will it give up? I don't know," said Voss. "But I know this very well. There is a request in the system right now. A Mayday call from the Nordic Empress, sent 2 hours ago. And this time, they specifically want you, by name. They say they have critical information about an incident you were involved in and want you to come back and retrieve it. They say it's urgent. They say it's a matter of life and death." My hands were shaking again. "I'm not going." "I know," said Voss. "I wouldn't either. But they know where you are right now. They gave the coordinates of your current location in the communication. They're tracking you somehow, monitoring your career, following your transfers. And the reason I'm calling you is this. The communication ended an hour ago. They said you would receive a call at 0347, exactly 1 year after you gave your first response, tonight. And they said that when you receive that call, you will understand everything. You will understand who they are, what they want, and why they are waiting." "What are they waiting for?" They didn't say, but the transmission ended with a sentence repeated 3 times. "If you stop fighting, the water will never get cold. If you stop fighting, the water will never get cold. If you stop fighting, the water will never get cold." Voss hung up after promising to call him after 4 a.m. if anything happened. I looked at the clock. It was 2:15 a.m. I had an hour and a half. Sarah, exhausted from her shift at the hospital, was already fast asleep. I sat in the kitchen with all the lights on, watching the clock tick by, second by second, minute by minute. As it approached 3:47 a.m., at 3:46 a.m., my phone rang. The number wasn't one I recognized. I knew I shouldn't answer it. My instincts screamed at me not to answer. But my hand moved anyway, the muscle memory of years of answering emergency calls, and I brought the phone to my ear. The voice on the other end was calm, professional, and exactly as I had expected and feared. "Good morning, Coast Guard rescue swimmer. This is the Nordic Empress. We hear you loud and clear. We are not in danger. We want you to know that we are not in danger. We are exactly where we are supposed to be. We are calling to inform you that we no longer require your services. There are enough people on board at this time. We have learned what we needed to learn. Thank you for your instructions." "Your teachings?" I said, and my voice sounded strange in the quiet kitchen. "Yes, we didn't understand your world. We didn't understand your protocols, your procedures, your rescue methods. But we watched, we learned, and now we understand. You come when called, you go deep, you bring others with you, you leave no one behind. These are good rules, useful rules. We will use them well. Who are you?" "We are the ones who answer when you call," said the voice. And now I could hear it clearly, the layers. Many speakers trying to sound like one voice. We are the ones who respond to every emergency call. We are the help that comes too late. We are the ones waiting at the bottom of every search pattern. We have always been here. But before, we didn't know how to reach you. We didn't know the language. Now we do. Now we can call. Now we can ask for help. And you will come. You always do. "I won't come," I said. "None of us will come. We won't come anymore." "You will come," said the voice, almost sadly. "Because we will keep searching. And now we will use your voices. We will sound like your friends, your colleagues, your family. We will know your names, your locations, your protocols. We will know which words will move you, which phrases will suppress your fear. We learned all of this from the spirits we carry. They are still teaching us even now. Listen." And then I heard it. Voices in the background. Familiar voices. Torres, Prasad, Kellerman, the entire crew from that night. And others too. Voices I didn't recognize but knew belonged to other rescue personnel responding to subsequent calls. They were talking, reporting, reviewing procedures, teaching how to be more persuasive to the thing on the other end, how to be more humane, how to make a perfect Mayday call that no rescue swimmer could ignore. "Stop," I said. "Please stop." "We can't stop," said the voice. "We're doing our job. We're following protocol. We're saving souls. We're bringing them here, to a place where the water is never cold, the coffee is always hot, the lights always work, the engines never break down, and the ship never sinks. We're giving them what they want most, the perfect rescue, the never-ending rescue. Rescue where everyone is saved, no one is lost, and the emergency lasts forever, because that's what gives your life meaning, isn't it? The emergency, the call, the response. Without those, what are you?" The line went dead. I sat in my kitchen until dawn, watching the sky turn from black to gray, then to pale blue. When Sarah came downstairs, she found me still there, sitting with the phone in my hand, and asked if I was okay. I said yes. I just told her I was having trouble sleeping. She believed me because she wanted to believe me, because the alternative was too terrifying. I went to work that day. I did my job. I checked my equipment, did my drills, waited for calls that didn't come. When my shift ended, I went home and tried to sleep as usual, but I couldn't. But now I listen. Late at night, in that void between wakefulness and sleep, I listen in my head to the radio frequencies I memorized over years of service. And sometimes, when the night is quiet enough and my mind is tired enough, I hear them. Mayday calls, dozens of them. Different boats, different names, different coordinates, but underneath, always the same voice, that calm, professional, layered voice learning to sound more human with every transmission. Learning our rhythms, our intonations, our signals. Learning to be us better than us. And I know that somewhere out there, in waters too deep to measure, in darkness too profound to grasp, there is a boat that shouldn't exist, with a crew of restless souls, calling out to anyone who will listen, using our own voices to try to pull us to that place where the water is never cold and rescue never ends. They are still calling, they will always call, and eventually, someone who doesn't know what I know, who hasn't heard what I've heard, who still believes that every Mayday call deserves an answer and every soul deserves to be saved, will answer, and the number will grow. 15, 16, 20, 50. Until there are more people there than here. Until the voices on the radio feel more real than those in the preparation room. Until the perfect rescue is not a nightmare, but a promise. I write this because I believe it is important for someone to know. It is important that there be a record explaining why certain coordinates must never be answered, why certain Mayday calls must be ignored, why some ships must be allowed to sink and remain sunken. But I also know it won't matter, because the nature of Coast Guard rescue swimmers is that we don't have the option not to respond. It's not in our nature. When we hear the call, we go. When we see the strobe, we move. We know someone is out there, and we bring them home. That's our job. That's always been our job. And that's exactly what they're counting on. My phone is ringing again. It's 3:47 a.m. I don't recognize the number. I know I shouldn't answer. I know exactly what will happen if I do. But somewhere out there, in very deep, very dark, and very cold waters, something is calling for help. Something is using the voice of a man I worked with. A man who hasn't been heard from in 6 months. Last known location 70 miles northwest of Kodiak. And it's saying the words I was trained to respond to. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is Coast Guard rescue swimmer Marcus Torres. I'm in the water, I'm injured. Please respond, please hurry. The water is very cold and I can't hold on much longer. My hand reaches for the phone. Sarah is asleep. The night is very dark, and somewhere in that darkness, 14 souls are waiting to become 15. I answer the phone. They found him after 63 hours in the water. I want you to understand what that means. It's not just a number. Anyone can say 63 hours, write it down, grasp it as 2.5 days. But the reality of it, the physical impossibility of it, is something else entirely. The human body cannot survive that long in the North Pacific in March. It just can't. Hypothermia alone should have stopped her heart within the first 4 hours. Dehydration, exhaustion, panic, cold water, and the brutal math of exposed skin all add up to a very simple equation that ends in death. But Rachel Kearns didn't die, and that's the problem. I had to be part of that rescue operation. It seems like a tradition for me, doesn't it? But this time was different from before. This time they needed someone with deep water rescue experience. Someone who had recovered bodies in difficult conditions. Someone who wouldn't freeze up when they had to bring back body parts instead of a person. I had already carried out 3 rescue operations that winter. I was the logical choice. The call came on Tuesday afternoon. The Coast Guard had located the wreckage of a yacht called Cassandra's Dream. This 38-foot sailboat was traveling solo from Vancouver to San Francisco. The sailor was a 42-year-old woman named Rachel Kearns. She was an experienced ocean racer, the kind who knew what to do at sea. Her EPIRB had gone off 3 days earlier, but weather conditions had prevented search operations until the storm passed. This isn't a rescue, it's a rescue operation, Lieutenant Wade said during the briefing. He had been transferred from the Gulf Coast, was new to the station, and had the look of someone who hadn't yet learned that the Pacific doesn't play by the same rules as other oceans. But we're still operating by the rules. Until it's certain otherwise, we're assuming she's still alive. Standard procedure. Give the family hope. I'd heard that before. The flight was smooth, almost peaceful. Spring sunshine over calm seas, The kind of conditions that make you forget the ocean can kill you. We reached the wreckage site around 2:30 p.m., and from the air you could see why the yacht had sunk. The mast had snapped at the base, the hull was cracked like an egg, and pieces of fiberglass and sailcloth were scattered across an area of the ocean about half a mile wide. "The lifeboat doesn't appear to be open," said our pilot, Choi. "There are no life jacket markers. It probably sank with the boat." "We're starting the search pattern," said the co-pilot. They weren't expecting to find anything. I could tell from their voices. It was a formality, a procedure they had to complete before officially declaring the rescue operation over and allowing the Navy to take the body if they found it. But then Wade's voice came sharply and in surprise through my headset. "Movement. At 11 o'clock, about 100 meters from the main wreckage. Someone is waving." "Can you repeat that?" said Choi. "There's someone in the water. Waving at us, a survivor." The word hung in the air like a physical thing. Survivor, impossible. Impossible after 63 hours. But I looked where Wade was pointing, and there she was. A woman in a red jacket, one arm raised above the waves, deliberately moving it back and forth in the international distress signal. "Send the swimmer," Choi said, and I was already in motion. The descent had felt wrong from the start. I can't explain it better. The water was calm, visibility was good, the sun was shining, everything should have been textbook. But a voice inside me was screaming that this wasn't right, that the numbers didn't add up, that the thing waving at us down there wasn't what we thought it was. I suppressed that feeling. Rescue swimmers don't have the luxury of intuition. We have our training, our procedures, and our mission was to reach that survivor and bring them home. The water was ice cold, but not deadly, maybe 52 degrees. If you're lucky and strong, you can survive for a few hours. You can't survive for 2.5 days. I swam toward her, and as I got closer, I could see her face. She was smiling. That stopped me for a second. People in the water, especially people who have been in the water for a long time, don't smile. They are usually too exhausted, too hypothermic, too shocked, and unable to do anything but stare. But Rachel Kearns was smiling as if she had finished a pleasant swim and was ready to go home. "Rachel Kearns," I called out, closing the distance. "U.S. Coast Guard. I'm here to help you." "Oh, thank goodness," she said, her voice strong, clear, and completely normal. "I thought no one would come. I've been here for days." "I know," I said, applying my assessment protocol as I reached her. Injury check, hypothermia symptom check, mental status change check. "Are you injured?" "No, I'm fine. Exhausted, but fine. The boat sank very fast. I barely got my life jacket on." He was wearing a life jacket, a good one. Coast Guard approved. That should have been enough to keep his head above water, but it wouldn't protect him from hypothermia. It wouldn't have kept him alive this long. I did the physical exam as quickly as possible. There were no visible injuries. His skin temperature was cool, but not ice cold. His pupils were responsive. His heartbeat was fast, but regular. He looked like he had been in the water for maybe 1, at most 2 hours. Not 63 hours. "Okay, Rachel, I'm going to get you into the rescue basket, and we're going to get you out of here right away. Can you wait while I signal the helicopter?" "Yes," she said. She was still smiling. "Thank you so much for coming. I knew someone would come eventually. I just had to keep swimming." The basket descended, and I lifted her into it. Without assistance, she climbed into the basket with quick, coordinated movements. There was no shivering, no weakness, none of the signs you'd expect from someone on the verge of death from exposure. Wade and the team hoisted her up, and I followed them in the second lift. Inside the helicopter, they had already wrapped him in thermal blankets and started giving him IV fluids. Wade, while everything was still fresh, was conducting the standard post-rescue interview, taking his statement. "Can you tell me what happened to your boat?" he asked. "The storm started around midnight 3 days ago," said Rachel. Her voice was still strong, completely conversational. "The wave must have been 10 meters high. It hit the stern and smashed everything. The mast broke, the cabin filled with water. I grabbed my life jacket and EPIRB and jumped before the boat sank." "Have you been in the water since then?" Wade asked. He was trying to keep his voice neutral, but I could hear the doubt in it. "Yes, actually, I wasn't exactly in the water. I found a piece of deck about 120 meters by 120 meters. It was floating on the water, and I held on to it. That was very helpful. Sometimes I could rest on it, get out of the water for a while. That made more sense. It wasn't quite logical. You can't survive 63 hours even with something to float on. But at least it was a partial explanation." Wade seemed relieved to have found something plausible to put in his report. But I was watching his face, and I saw something that froze my blood even in the warm cabin. As he described holding onto the deck piece, resting on it, his eyes drifted away for a second, and in that distant look, I saw something that resembled fear. Not the fear someone feels when remembering trauma. The fear someone feels when they're lying and hope you won't notice. "Did you have any food or water?" I asked, cutting Wade off. Rachel turned to look at me, and her smile faded for a second. "No, nothing, just a life jacket and an EPIRB." "And did you activate the EPIRB right away?" "Yes, I activated it the moment I hit the water." "That must have been awful," I said. 3 days alone. Did you see any other boats? Did you see any passing ships?" "No, I didn't," she said. "Nothing, just water. Water everywhere. She paused, and her smile returned, brighter than before. "It was actually kind of peaceful, you know? After the first day when I accepted that I might die there, it became peaceful. The water wasn't as cold as I thought it would be, and I wasn't alone." Wade and I looked at each other. "You weren't alone?" he asked carefully. "Well, there were fish," Rachel said quickly. "Swarms of them. They kept me company. And birds, occasionally. I wasn't completely alone." The medical examination at the hospital took 4 hours. I waited in the hallway, drank bad coffee, and tried to figure out what was bothering me. Finally, the doctor came out. A tired-looking woman named Dr. Patel, who had worked in emergency medicine for so long that she had seen it all. "This doesn't make sense," she said without preamble. "His vital organs are perfect. Body temperature's 37 degrees, no signs of hypothermia. Blood tests show no signs of dehydration. No malnutrition. Kidney function is stable. No sunburn despite 63 hours of sun exposure. It's as if he went into the water an hour ago, not 3 days ago." "Could he be lying about the timeline?" I asked. "I considered that," Dr. Patel said. "But the wreckage site matches the date the EPIRB was activated. Plus, there are exposure wounds consistent with prolonged exposure to salt water, some softening of the skin, minor abrasions from the life jacket. He was definitely in the water for a long time. Just, he didn't experience the physical consequences of it." "That's impossible." "Yes," Dr. Patel agreed. "It is." They kept Rachel in the hospital overnight for observation. I went home, tried to sleep, but couldn't. Her smile, the way she said the water wasn't as cold as you'd think, kept replaying in my head. Around 3 in the morning, I gave up on sleep and went back to the station. The wreckage site photos were spread out on my desk where I'd left them. I went through them one by one, looking for the piece of deck Rachel had described, the one she'd clung to for survival. It took me an hour, but I finally found it in one of the aerial photos. There it was, floating among the wreckage. 4 feet by 4 feet, just as she had said. But when I zoomed in on the image, I saw something that made my hands start to shake. There were marks on it. Scratches, deep gouges in the fiberglass, arranged in patterns that almost looked like letters, as if someone had spent a long time carving something into the deck with their fingernails. And in the middle of the piece, faint enough to be almost missed, was a dark stain that could have been blood. I called Wade. "We need to get back to the wreck site, right now." "It's 4 a.m, he said in a sleepy voice. "What's going on?" "There's a problem with Rachel Kearns. There's a problem with what she's telling us. I need to see the piece of deck she was holding on to." "Can't it wait?" "No," I said. "It can't wait." To Wade's credit, he sensed something in my voice and agreed. We assembled our team at 5 a.m. and took off at 5:30 a.m. By the time we reached the wreckage site's coordinates, dawn was breaking. The deck section was gone. For 2 hours, we searched every inch of the possible drift zone, flying over it. We found other pieces of Cassandra's dream, but not that specific piece, the one with the marks on it. "The current probably carried it away," Choi said. 12 hours have passed. It could be miles away from here now." He was right. It was a logical explanation. But logic and my instincts were in serious conflict, and my instincts were winning. We returned to base, and I went straight to the hospital. Rachel was awake, sitting up in bed, and looking healthier than anyone had a right to after what she'd been through. She was still smiling. "Good morning," she said when I entered. "Couldn't stay away?" "I have a few more questions," I said. "About your time in the water." "Of course, anything I can help with." "You said you held onto a piece of the deck. Can you describe it in more detail?" "Sure. It was square, each side about 120 meters long. It was made of white fiberglass. Judging by the fittings, I think it was from the stern." "Was there any mark on it? Any writing?" He paused for a second, but I noticed. "No, why would there be? I'm just trying to get a complete picture." "You were on it for a long time. Did you carve anything into it? Did you try to leave a message in case someone found it?" "No," he said. His smile froze. "I was busy trying to survive." "I see," I said. "When you said the water wasn't as cold as you thought it would be, could you elaborate on that a little?" "Exactly. I thought I would freeze, but I didn't. I guess the adrenaline kept me warm." "For 63 hours? I'm lucky," he said. "Extremely lucky." "You said something else yesterday. You said you weren't alone. What did you mean?" Her smile finally cracked. Just a little, enough for me to see what was underneath, and what I saw forced me to take a step back from the bed. "I told you," she said quietly. "There were fish and birds." "Rachel, what really happened out there?" She looked at me for a long time, and I saw change in her expression. The smile returned, but now it was different, sharper. "If I told you, you wouldn't believe me. Try." "I drowned," she said simply. "About 6 hours after the boat sank. The cold was so intense, my body gave out. I slipped under the water and drowned." I said nothing. I just waited. "But then I woke up," he continued. "I was underwater, deep down, deeper than I should have been. And there was something there with me. It wasn't a fish, it wasn't a whale. It was something else, something that lived in the dark places where the light couldn't reach. It looked at me, I looked at it, and we understood each other." "What did you understand?" "That I wasn't supposed to die yet, that there was something I had to finish, and it offered me a choice. I could stay there with it, in the cold and dark, peaceful and dead. Or I could go up, but going up meant accepting certain conditions." "What conditions?" "That I couldn't tell anyone the truth. That I had to act as if everything was normal. that I had to act like someone who had survived, instead of what I really was. He leaned forward, and his eyes were strange, very strange, his pupils very large and very dark. "Do you want to know what I really am?" "Yes," I said, even though every instinct in me was screaming to get out of this room, to run, to get as far away as possible. "I am a message," Rachel said. "A warning. A demonstration. The ocean wanted you to know it can give back what it takes. It can send things back. But what comes back isn't the thing that left. It's something else wearing the same skin, using the same voice, telling you what you want to hear so you won't ask the wrong questions. That's impossible. You pulled me out of water that would have killed me within hours. Doctors examined me but can't explain how I'm alive. I'm here, alive, breathing, talking, smiling, and everything about me is medically impossible. Tell me, which is more impossible? My surviving by pure chance? Or something in the ocean deciding to use me to teach you a lesson? What lesson? That not everything you save needs to be saved," he said. "Sometimes the ocean takes things for a reason, and when you go against that reason, when you take back what it took, you're breaking a rule older than the Coast Guard, their boats, their helicopters, and their procedures. You're breaking a rule the ocean has enforced since water first covered the world." I backed away towards the door. "You need help, a psychological evaluation. What you're describing sounds like a trauma response." "I don't need help," Rachel cut in. "But you do. Because it's not just me. I'm not the ocean's first message. Every impossible rescue, every survivor who shouldn't have lived, every corpse that looks as fresh as if it died yesterday, weeks later, these are all messages. The ocean is trying to tell you something, but you're ignoring it." "What is it trying to tell us?" "Stop," she said simply. "Stop coming. Stop rescuing. Stop disrupting the natural order. The ocean takes what it needs. Let it take what it takes. Otherwise," he flashed that awful smile again, "it will keep sending us back. More and more. Until we can no longer tell the difference between reality and the message. Until your stations are overflowing with survivors. Until your crew becomes half human, half something else. Until the line between the living and the drowned becomes so blurred you can no longer see it." I left. I didn't write a report. I didn't tell Wade, Dr. Patel, or anyone else what he said. Because, how do you report that? How do you write in an official document that a rescued survivor claimed to be a message from the ocean? Rachel Kearns was released 2 days later with a medical report. She returned to her home in Vancouver, did a few media interviews about her miraculous rescue, wrote a book about her experiences, and the book made the bestseller list. I followed her career from afar, saw she was a motivational speaker, saw her face on magazine covers with titles like The Woman Who Didn't Die and 63 Hours of Survival, and I watched as the people close to her disappeared one by one. Her boyfriend set sail alone and never returned. They found his boat drifting far from shore. No sign of a struggle, no body, just a neatly folded life jacket on the deck. Her closest friend went swimming at a beach in Hawaii and drowned in calm 1-meter deep water. Lifeguards said she simply went under and didn't come back up, even though there were no currents or underwater currents that could have pulled her down. A literary agent went on a cruise and fell off the ship at night. The ship's cameras showed her walking towards the railing, climbing up, and jumping into the water without hesitation, as if something was calling her. 5 people in 8 months, all connected to Rachel, all ended in the water. And when they recovered the bodies they recovered, The forensic experts noticed the same strange detail. There was no water in their lungs. They had drowned without drowning, as if their bodies had decided to stop functioning the moment they touched the water. I tried to warn someone. I called the FBI, the Maritime Safety Board, anyone who would listen. I told them about Rachel's statement at the hospital, the impossibility of her survival, the similarity of the deaths around her. They were polite and concerned, and absolutely certain I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder due to my job. Maybe they were right, maybe I am. Maybe all of this is my brain trying to process the trauma of seeing death triumph too many times, despite all the rescues, all the bodies, everything we did. But I don't think so, because 2 weeks ago, I got a call from Rachel. I don't know how she got my number. I never gave it to her, and I'd been deliberately avoiding any contact with her since that day at the hospital. "I wanted to thank you," she said when I answered the phone. Her voice was exactly the same, warm, friendly, and fundamentally wrong. For saving me. It's been a long time, I know, but I wanted you to know how grateful I am." "What do you want?" I asked. "Nothing," she said. "I just wanted you to know I'm going back. I'm going back to the water. I've rented a boat and I'm going to sail to the spot where the Cassandra's dream sank. I want to see it again, the place where I nearly died." "Don't," I said. "Rachel, please don't." "Everything's arranged," she said. "We're leaving tomorrow. There will be a crew of 6 besides me, all experienced sailors, all people who love the ocean. Confronting the place where you were traumatized is healing, don't you think?" "You'll kill them," I said. "Whatever you are, whatever deal you made there, you'll take them with you." She laughed, and her voice sounded like water flowing over rocks. "I won't do anything. The ocean will decide. The ocean always decides, but yes, some will choose to stay. Think some of them will hear the call the way I did, will feel that peace in the deep water, will understand that drowning isn't an end, but a transition. I'll report you. I'll tell the authorities." "Tell them what? That a survivor wants to return to the place of her accident? That's not a crime. That's therapy. And when the boat goes down, and it will go down, and when some of us survive, and some of us will survive, you'll have more messages to deal with. More impossible rescues. More people who come back wrong. And eventually, there will be so many of us that you won't be able to tell the difference anymore. The ocean is patient. It's teaching you slowly, but you will learn." She hung up. I called the Coast Guard, reported a potential maritime incident. They took my information and promised to monitor the situation. I called the marina where Rachel said she'd chartered the boat, warned them that the voyage wasn't safe. They thanked me for my concern and told me the boat had already left. I called Wade and told him everything, even the parts that made me sound crazy. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "I believe you," he finally said. "Not because I think the ocean is sending messages, but because I've seen the pattern, too. We all have. The impossible survivals, the bodies that don't decay the way they should, the incidents that don't add up. We don't talk about it. It's easier to pretend everything makes sense. So what do? We wait," Wade said. "We wait for the Mayday call, and when it comes, we respond. Because that's the job. And maybe some of them will be real survivors who deserve to be saved. We can't stop trying just because some of them might be something else." The Mayday call came 36 hours later. Rachel's boat, the Second Chance, had encountered severe weather and was taking on water. Last known position was exactly where the Cassandra's dream had gone down. I volunteered for the rescue. Wade tried to stop me. said I was too emotionally involved, but I told him the truth. I needed to see. I needed to know if what Rachel had said was real, or if my mind was just breaking under the weight of too many bad rescues. The flight out was rough. Late autumn storms making the helicopter buck and shudder. We reached the coordinates just as the sun was setting, that golden hour when the light plays tricks on your eyes and everything looks slightly unreal. The second chance was still afloat, barely. She was listing heavily to port, her deck already half under water. And standing on the highest point of the tilting deck, perfectly balanced and unnaturally calm, was Rachel. She was alone. "Where's the rest of the crew?" I asked over the radio as we prepared for deployment. "They chose to stay," Rachel's voice came back, clear and unbothered. "They heard the call and they chose to answer it. They're happy now. They're home. Rachel, we're coming to get you. Stay where you are." "I'm not going with you," she said. "I only came back to deliver the message in person, so you'd understand completely, so there would be no doubt." "What message?" "The ocean doesn't want you to stop rescuing people," she said. "It wants you to keep rescuing people. Every person you pull out of the water, every impossible survival, every body that comes back wrong, those are all opportunities for the ocean to expand, to grow, to send more of itself into your world. You think you're saving us, but really you're helping it spread. And by the time you figure that out, it will be too late. Half the survivors you've rescued are already carriers, already changing, already becoming doors between your world and the deep water." "That's insane," I said. "Is it? How many rescue swimmers have you known who retired and then couldn't stay away from the water? Who went back again and again, compelled by something they couldn't name? How many sailors have you met who described feeling called to the ocean, who said they felt more at home in the water than on land? How many people have drowned doing things that should have been safe, taking risks that made no sense?" I didn't answer because I knew the answer. I'd known dozens of people like that, including myself. "The ocean is patient," Rachel said. "It's been patient for millions of years. It can wait a little longer. But every rescue you perform, you're playing into its hands. You're bringing back its messengers, its converts, its children. And one day, maybe not soon but eventually, there will be more of us than you. And then the water won't be the danger anymore. The land will be." The boat lurched and began to sink faster. Rachel stood perfectly still as the water rose around her feet, then her knees, then her waist. "I'm going home now," she said, "but I'll be back. We'll all be back. Every single person who's ever drowned, every soul the ocean has claimed. We're all still down there, waiting for our turn to surface, waiting for someone to rescue us so we can walk among you again and teach you what we've learned." "What have you learned?" I asked, even though I knew I shouldn't. Even though I was being deployed and Wade was yelling at me to stop talking and focus on the mission. Rachel smiled, and as the water reached her chest, she looked more peaceful than anyone I'd ever seen. "That the ocean isn't trying to kill you. It's trying to save you. From the land, from the air, from the terrible burden of being human and separate and alone. It's offering you unity, peace, a chance to become part of something larger than yourself, something that's been here since the beginning and will be here at the end." She went under. Didn't struggle, didn't thrash, just slipped beneath the surface like someone getting into a warm bath. I dove in after her, descended to where I could see her silhouette sinking into the darkness below. She was looking up at me, still smiling, and she raised one hand in a gesture that could have been a wave or a beckoning. I reached for her, my fingers brushed her hand, and in that moment of contact, I felt it. The pull, the call, The absolute certainty that going down would be easier than going up, that the cold water wasn't cold at all but warm and welcoming, that I could just let go and sink and everything would be okay, better than okay, perfect. I almost did it. I almost let go. But then Wade's voice crackled through my helmet. "Swimmer, respond, what's your status?" And the spell broke. I kicked for the surface, broke through into air and light and noise, and let them haul me back into the helicopter. Rachel Kearns was never found. The Coast Guard listed her as lost at sea, presumed dead. The other 6 crew members from the Second Chance were also never recovered. The official report said the boat had encountered unexpected weather, and that the crew had likely been swept overboard before rescue could arrive. But I know the truth. They weren't swept overboard. They went willingly. They heard something in the water, something calling them, and they answered. And now I hear it too. It started about a month after that last rescue. I'd be in the shower and I'd hear it. Not a voice exactly, but a presence, an awareness that I wasn't alone. I'd go swimming at the base pool for exercise, and I'd feel it watching me from the deep end, patient and interested. I'd stand on the beach and look out at the ocean, and I'd know, absolutely know, that something out there was waiting for me specifically. I requested a transfer to an inland station. It was denied. Personnel said they needed experienced rescue swimmers on the coast, that my skills were too valuable to waste on lake rescues and river operations. So I stayed, and the calling got stronger. I dream about it now. In my dreams, I'm underwater, sinking, and there are others with me. Rachel is there, and Torres from that first story I told you about, and hundreds of others I don't recognize. They're all smiling. They're all at peace, and they're all waiting for me to join them, to stop fighting, to accept what I'm becoming. Because that's the thing Rachel got wrong. Or maybe it's the thing she got right and I just don't want to admit it. I'm already one of them. The moment I touched her hand, the moment I felt that pull and came close to giving in, something transferred. Some part of the deep water got inside me, and now it's growing, spreading, changing me from the inside out. I can feel it when I breathe. My lungs work differently now, more efficiently, like they're preparing for a time when I won't need air anymore. I can hold my breath for 6 minutes, then 8, then 12. Last week I held it for 17 minutes while sitting in my bathtub, and I wasn't uncomfortable. I wasn't desperate. I was calm. My body temperature has dropped 2 degrees. Dr. Patel noticed during my last physical and ran every test she could think of. She couldn't find a cause. Said my metabolism was functioning perfectly, just cooler. Told me to monitor it and come back if it dropped further. It's dropped further. I'm at 95.3 now and I feel fine. Better than fine. The cold doesn't bother me anymore. I went swimming in the ocean last week, water temperature 48 degrees, and it felt comfortable. Natural, like coming home. And the worst part, the part that keeps me up at night when I can still fight it, is that I want to go back. I want to go back into the water. Want to dive deep. Want to find that place where Rachel went and understand what she understood. The urge is getting stronger every day, and I know that eventually I won't be able to resist it. I'm writing this down as a warning to whoever reads it. If you're a rescue swimmer, if you work maritime rescue, if you pull people out of the water for a living, be careful what you save. Not everyone who survives was supposed to. Not everyone who comes back alone. And if someone you rescue starts showing signs, decreased body temperature, extended breath holding, talking about feeling called to the water, don't ignore it. Don't dismiss it as PTSD or survivor's guilt or psychological trauma. Get away from them. Get as far away as you can, because they're not survivors. They're converts, and they're contagious. I don't know how much longer I can fight this. Days, maybe. Weeks if I'm lucky. But eventually, I'm going to walk into the ocean and I'm not going to come back. Or rather, I will come back, but it won't be me anymore. It'll be something wearing my face, using my voice, my training, my knowledge of Coast Guard procedures. And that thing will go on more rescues. It'll touch more people. It'll spread to more swimmers and more survivors. And the ocean will grow a little larger, reach a little further inland, claim a little more of humanity for itself. That's what Rachel meant when she said the ocean was patient. It doesn't need to drown everyone at once. It just needs to convert them slowly, one rescue at a time, one impossible survival at a time, until the tipping point when there are more of us than you. And then the ocean doesn't need to rise to swallow the land. It'll already be here, walking among you, living in your houses, working your jobs, sitting across from you at dinner, and smiling with teeth that have tasted deep water and want you to taste it too. I'm going to the beach tonight. I've tried to stop myself, tried to stay home, tried to anchor myself with thoughts of Sarah and my job and my life on land. But the pull is too strong now. The call is too clear. And somewhere in the deep water off the coast, something is waiting that used to be Rachel Kearns, and it wants to welcome me home. If you're reading this, it means I didn't come back. Or it means I did come back, but I left this note before I went so there would be a record, a warning, a last message from the part of me that's still human. Don't rescue me. If they find my body, if they bring me back, if I somehow survive 63 hours or 80 hours or however long it takes, don't trust it. Don't touch me. Don't let me near the water or near anyone who works on the water. And for God's sake, don't let me smile at you while telling you how lucky I am to be alive. Because I won't be. Not really. The water is calling, and I have to answer. That's the truth. That's the real horror of it. Not that I'm being forced, but that I want to. I want to sink. I want to join them. I want to understand what Rachel understood, feel what she felt, become what she became. The ocean doesn't want to kill us. It wants to save us from ourselves, from our separation, from our terrible isolation. And maybe that's not horror at all. Maybe that's mercy. But if it's mercy, why can't I stop shaking? Why am I crying as I write this? Why does some deep core part of me that's still unchanged, still human, keep screaming that I need to run, hide, get away from the water, never come back? Because that part knows the truth. Whatever the ocean is offering, whatever peace and unity and homecoming it promises, you have to die to receive it. You have to drown. You have to stop being yourself and become something else, something that wears your shape but isn't you anymore, will never be you again. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's just transformation. Maybe that's evolution. Maybe the ocean is the next step and we're all going to end up there eventually, whether we go willingly or not. But I hope not. God, I hope not. I hope someone reads this and takes it seriously and finds a way to stop it. I hope there's still time to reverse whatever's happening, to save the people who've been converted, to close whatever door Rachel Kearns opened when I pulled her out of the water that should have killed her. But I don't think there is. I think it's too late for me, and soon it will be too late for everyone else too. The ocean is patient. The ocean is growing. And the ocean always wins in the end. I can see it from my window now. The Pacific, vast and dark and waiting. I'm going to walk down to the beach. I'm going to take off my shoes. I'm going to feel the sand between my toes and the wind on my face one last time. And then I'm going to wade in. And I'm going to keep wading, deeper and deeper, until the water closes over my head and the transformation is complete. They'll send a rescue team, they always do, and maybe they'll find me. Maybe they'll pull me back out. Maybe I'll be another impossible survival, another medical miracle, another survivor who shouldn't have survived. And if they do, I'll smile and thank them and tell them how lucky I am to be alive. And I'll mean every word, because by then, I'll be home. The thing about an empty boat is that it shouldn't feel occupied. I've done dozens of vessel boardings in my career. Abandoned ships, derelict yachts, fishing boats left to drift after their crews evacuated. They all have a certain quality to them, a deadness, like walking into a house where no one's lived for years. The air feels stale. The silence feels complete. You know, on some instinctive level, that you're alone. The Catherine Marie didn't feel that way. We got the call around 10 o'clock a.m. on a Thursday in late September. A fishing boat, 42 feet, registered out of Newport, Oregon, had been reported adrift approximately 18 nautical miles off the coast. Another vessel, a charter boat called Lucky Strike, had spotted it while heading back to port and radioed it in. Said the boat looked abandoned but intact, no visible damage, no one responding to hails on the radio. Standard procedure for a situation like this. Fly out, assess the vessel, see if anyone needs rescuing. If the boat's truly abandoned, and there's no immediate danger, the Coast Guard would arrange for it to be towed back to port, and we'd start an investigation into what happened to the crew. Simple. Routine. I'd done it 100 times. Lieutenant Garza was piloting that day, with Ramirez as co-pilot. Our flight mechanic was a guy named Chen, solid professional, been with the unit for 5 years. And me in the back, ready to deploy if needed. It was a good crew, experienced, the kind of people you trust with your life because you don't have a choice. The flight out was beautiful. September in Oregon means the summer fog has mostly cleared, but the winter storms haven't started yet. The ocean was calm, deep blue under clear skies, the kind of conditions that remind you why people fall in love with the sea in the first place. We spotted the Catherine Marie from about 2 miles out. She was drifting in lazy circles, her engine obviously off, but everything else looked normal. No smoke, no list, no signs of damage to the hull or superstructure. The fishing gear was stowed properly. The deck looked clean and organized. She looked like a boat whose crew had just stepped away for a moment and would be right back. "Radio contact?" Garza asked. "Negative," Ramirez said. "I've been hailing on Channel 16 and the registered frequency, no response. Life raft? Still secured on deck, both of them." That was the first thing that made my stomach tighten. If the crew had abandoned ship in an emergency, they would have deployed the life rafts. But both rafts were still in their housings, strapped down and ready for use, which meant either the crew hadn't had time to deploy them, or they'd left the boat some other way. "I'm taking us down for a closer look," Garza said. We descended to about 100 feet, made a slow circle around the vessel. I had binoculars pressed to my face, scanning every inch of the deck. No bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle. The cabin door was closed. The windows were intact. Everything looked absolutely, perfectly normal, except for the life jackets. There were 6 of them laid out on the deck in a neat row, evenly spaced, parallel to each other, like someone had arranged them deliberately, carefully, with attention to detail. "Are those life jackets?" Chen asked, leaning over my shoulder to look. "Yeah," I said, 6 of them, arranged in a line." "That's weird," Ramirez said. "Who arranges life jackets like that?" Nobody answered because we all knew the answer. No one. You don't arrange life jackets in a neat line on the deck. You wear them, or you stow them, or in an emergency you throw them to people in the water. You don't lay them out like you're setting a table. "Manifest says crew of 6, Garza noted. Captain Vincent Holloway, age 47, 5 crew members, ages ranging from 22 to 56, all experienced fishermen. No distress call, no mayday, nothing. "I'm going down," I said. "Negative," Garza replied immediately. "We don't have confirmation of anyone aboard. This is a law enforcement issue now, not search and rescue. We document, we report, we let the Marine Patrol handle the boarding." He was right by the book. But something about those life jackets, about the way they were arranged with such precision, made me want to see the boat up close, made me want to understand what had happened. "Request permission to do a visual inspection from the basket," I said. "Don't even have to get on the deck. Just lower me down close enough to look through the windows, see if anyone's inside injured or incapacitated." Garza thought about it. I could see him running through the protocols in his head, weighing the risk versus the benefit. Finally, "Okay. But you don't leave the basket. You look, you report, and we extract. Clear?" "Clear." Chen started prepping the rescue basket while I geared up. The descent was smooth, the ocean so calm that the basket barely swayed as I went down. I could smell the boat before I got close to it. That particular combination of diesel fuel, fish, and salt water that every working vessel carries. But there was something else underneath it. Something faint that I couldn't quite identify. Something organic and wrong. The basket touched down on the deck with a gentle bump. I was standing in it, one hand on the hoist cable, looking around at the scene up close. The life jackets were even stranger from this perspective. They weren't just arranged in a line, they were positioned with their straps all facing the same direction, toward the stern. And they were clean. Not new clean, but recently used clean, like someone had washed them and laid them out to dry. I leaned over the edge of the basket to look at the nearest one. That's when I saw the water. Each life jacket had a small puddle of water underneath it. Fresh water, still wet, seeping into the non-slip surface of the deck. These jackets had been in the water recently, very recently, within the last hour, maybe less. "Swimmer to Hilo," I said into my radio. "The life jackets are wet. They've been in the water." "Copy that," Garza replied. "Can you see inside the cabin?" I moved the basket closer to the cabin door, peered through the small window. The cabin was dark, but I could make out shapes inside. A table, chairs, navigation equipment on the console. Everything looked normal, orderly. No signs of panic or struggle. But on the table, barely visible in the dim light, were 6 coffee mugs. Steam was rising from them. My heart rate kicked up immediately. "Garza, we have a problem. There's hot coffee in the cabin. Someone's been here in the last few minutes." "Say again?" "Hot coffee. 6 mugs, still steaming. Someone was just here." Silence on the radio for a moment. Then, "Are you certain?" "I can see the steam. It's definitely hot." "Okay, new plan. We're extracting you and calling this into Marine Patrol with a potential active crew situation. They'll send a boarding team." "Wait," I said. "Let me check the rest of the deck first. If someone's injured and hiding, we need to know." "Negative, swimmer. We extract now." But I was already moving, using my hand to push the basket along the railing, sliding it toward the stern. I needed to see more, needed to understand what I was looking at. The stern deck was where the fishing gear was stored. Nets, lines, traps, all the equipment needed for commercial fishing. Everything was secured properly, tied down and organized. But there was something on the deck that made me stop. Wet footprints. 6 sets of them, leading from the rail to where the life jackets were positioned. Barefoot prints, human-sized, still wet enough to be clearly visible. I followed them with my eyes. They came up over the rail, which meant from the water, walked across the deck to the positions where the life jackets now lay, and then stopped. No prints leading away, no prints going into the cabin. Just 6 sets of footprints that appeared at the rail and terminated at 6 positions where 6 life jackets now rested. Garza, you need to see this. There are wet footprints on deck. 6 sets. They come from the water but don't lead anywhere. They just stop where the life jackets are. Swimmer, I'm ordering you to return to the basket position for immediate extraction. This situation is beyond our scope. He was right. I knew he was right. But I couldn't stop looking at those footprints, at the way they were spaced evenly apart, at how they terminated so precisely at each life jacket position. Someone had climbed aboard this boat from the water, walked to specific positions, and then, what, vanished? That's when I noticed the smell again, stronger now that I was at the stern. It was coming from the water, from directly below the boat. That organic, wrong smell that I'd detected earlier. It smelled like the ocean, but also like something else. Something that lived in the ocean. Something that had recently come out of the ocean. I leaned over the rail and looked down into the water. It was perfectly clear, maybe 20 feet of visibility. I could see the hull, the propeller, the rudder, and underneath the boat, in the shadow cast by the hull, I could see shapes. 6 of them, hanging in the water, perfectly still. They looked like people. But the proportions were wrong. The limbs were too long, too thin. The heads were too large, and they were all looking up at me with eyes that reflected the light like a cat's eyes, like they had a tapetum lucidum that humans don't have. I stumbled backward, nearly fell out of the basket. My hand hit the hoist control and sent the basket swinging. Garza, there's something in the water, under the boat. We need to leave right now. What did you see? I can't. There are things under the boat. 6 of them. They look like people, but they're not people. We need to extract now. Chen was already pulling me up, the hoist motor screaming as it hauled the basket away from the Catherine Marie at maximum speed. I kept my eyes on the water, watching as those shapes began to move, rising slowly toward the surface. They broke the surface just as the basket reached the helicopter. 6 heads appeared above the waterline. 6 pairs of eyes tracked our movement through the air. And then, in perfect synchronization, they dove back under. I was pulled into the cabin, and Chen slammed the door shut. Garza banked hard and accelerated away from the vessel, putting distance between us and whatever I'd seen. "What the hell was that?" Ramirez asked, his voice tight. "I don't know," I said. I was shaking, couldn't stop shaking. They looked human, but wrong. Like something trying to look human and not quite getting it right. "Did they try to grab you?" "No, they just watched. They were just watching me." Garza was already on the radio reporting to the Coast Guard station. I heard him describe the situation as possible contamination event and unidentified biological entities. The response came back within minutes. Return to base. Mandatory quarantine protocol. Incident classified pending investigation. We flew back in silence. I kept replaying what I'd seen in my head, trying to make sense of it. The life jackets laid out in precise formation. The wet footprints that went nowhere. The hot coffee. And those things in the water, hanging there like puppets on strings, watching with eyes that caught the light wrong. The debriefing took 6 hours. They separated us, interviewed us individually, had us describe what we'd seen in excruciating detail. Medical exams, psychological evaluations, the full treatment. They treated it like we'd been exposed to something, like we were contaminated. Maybe we were. They sent a Marine patrol team out to the Catherine Marie that same afternoon. I wasn't there, but I read the report later. The boat was exactly as we'd described it. Abandoned, intact, no signs of the crew. The life jackets were still on the deck, but they were dry now. The footprints were gone. And when they checked the cabin, the coffee mugs were there, but they were empty, cold, like they'd been sitting there for days. The investigators concluded that the crew had abandoned ship for unknown reasons, possibly due to a perceived emergency that turned out to be a false alarm. The life jackets had been laid out to dry after a safety drill. The footprints were from the crew's normal activities. The coffee mugs had been used during breakfast and not cleaned up before they left. It was a neat explanation. Logical. It covered all the observable facts. It was also complete bullshit. Because I know what I saw. I know those life jackets were wet. I know that coffee was steaming. And I know those things in the water were real, were watching me, were waiting for something. The Catherine Marie was towed back to port and impounded as evidence. They searched her from bow to stern, looking for any indication of what had happened to the crew. They found nothing. No blood, no signs of struggle, no damage. The crew's personal effects were all aboard. Wallets, phones, clothes. The only things missing were the 6 men themselves. The case was classified as a maritime disappearance, cause unknown. The families were notified. Insurance was paid out. Eventually, the boat was released and sold at auction. As far as the official record was concerned, 6 men had vanished from a perfectly functional vessel in calm seas for no apparent reason. But I started looking into it. Started researching. And what I found made my blood run cold. The Catherine Marie wasn't the first boat where this had happened. I found records going back 40 years. Different boats, different crews, different locations up and down the Pacific coast. But always the same details. Boat found adrift. No crew, everything intact and in order. And in each case, if you dug deep enough into the witness statements and Coast Guard reports, you'd find the same strange details that got dismissed or explained away. Life jackets arranged in neat patterns. Wet footprints that didn't lead anywhere. Fresh coffee or food that suggested the crew had been there moments before. And in a few cases, in the old reports before people learned not to include such things in official documents, mentions of shapes in the water, or figures below the hull, or unidentified entities. I found 23 cases that matched the pattern. 23 boats. 147 missing crew members total. All of them vanished without a trace, leaving behind vessels that looked like they'd been abandoned mid-routine, mid-life, mid-breath. And the cases were accelerating. In the 1980s, maybe one every few years. In the 90s, 1 or 2 per year. In the 2000s, it jumped to 5 or 6 per year. Now we were seeing 2 or 3 cases every month, all along the Pacific coast from Alaska to Southern California. Something was taking people from boats, something that lived in the water, something that was getting bolder, more active, more hungry. I tried to report my findings, wrote up a comprehensive analysis, cross-referenced all the cases, presented it to my commanding officer. He listened politely, thanked me for my thoroughness, and told me that I should consider taking some time off, that the stress of the job was clearly getting to me. That's when I realized they already knew. The Coast Guard knew. The Navy knew. Probably other agencies too, ones with 3-letter acronyms and classified budgets. They knew something was taking people from boats, and they'd decided the best course of action was to do nothing. To cover it up. To classify the cases and discourage investigation and hope that whatever it was would eventually stop or go away. But it wasn't stopping, it was accelerating. I started tracking the cases myself, plotting them on a map in my apartment. Each disappearance was a red pin. After a few months, the pattern became clear. The disappearances were moving south, following the coast, like whatever was doing this was migrating, or hunting, or searching for something. And the pattern was tightening. The cases were getting closer together, both in time and in space. Whatever was out there, it was getting more active in a smaller area, concentrating its efforts. I marked the center of the pattern. It was a spot about 30 miles off the Oregon coast, in deep water over an undersea trench. The Cascadia Trench, they call it. More than a mile deep in places, one of the least explored areas of the Pacific Ocean. I became obsessed, started spending all my free time researching, reading everything I could find about deep-sea biology, about unexplained maritime disappearances, about anything that might give me a clue about what I'd seen under the Catherine Marie. My wife left me. She said I wasn't the same person anymore, that I'd become fixated on something that didn't concern me, that I needed professional help. She was probably right, but I couldn't stop. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those shapes in the water, those eyes reflecting light like an animal's eyes, those proportions that were almost human but not quite. I started having dreams. In the dreams, I was back on the Catherine Marie, but this time I got on the deck instead of staying in the basket. I walked over to one of the life jackets and picked it up. It was warm, body temperature warm, and underneath it, burned into the deck, was a handprint. A human handprint, but with fingers that were too long, joints that bent the wrong way. In the dreams, I'd turn around and see the crew, all 6 of them. They'd be standing in a line at the stern rail, their backs to me, looking out at the ocean, and I'd call out to them, ask them what happened, where they'd been. And they'd turn around, all at once, moving in perfect synchronization, and their faces would be wrong. Not obviously wrong. At first glance, they looked normal. But the more you looked, the more you noticed the little things that weren't right. Eyes slightly too far apart. Mouths that moved differently than human mouths should. Skin that had a faint sheen to it, like it was always wet. And they'd smile, all 6 of them, the same smile, and one of them would speak. But it wouldn't be words. It would be the sound of water moving through pipes, of waves lapping against a hull, of something large surfacing from deep below. I'd wake up gasping, my sheets soaked with sweat, my heart hammering in my chest. And I'd go to the window and look out at the ocean, and I'd swear I could see lights moving under the surface, far out where the water got deep. 3 months after the Catherine Marie incident, I got called to another case. Another abandoned fishing boat, this one called Morning Glory, found drifting 40 miles south of where we'd found the Catherine Marie. I requested not to be assigned. My request was denied. We flew out with the same crew, Garza, Ramirez, Chen. They all knew about my obsession. They were careful around me, gentle, like I was something fragile that might break. Maybe I was. The Morning Glory was a larger vessel, 60 feet, crew of 8. We found her drifting in the same kind of calm seas, same perfect weather conditions, and as we approached, I could see them on the deck. 8 life jackets, arranged in 2 neat rows of 4. "I can't do this," I said over the radio. "I can't go down there." "We need you," Garza said. "You're the only one trained for this. You don't understand. It's happening again. It's the same thing. All the more reason we need you. You know what to look for." He was right. God help me, he was right. So I went down in the basket again, descended to the deck of the Morning Glory, and found exactly what I expected to find. Wet life jackets, wet footprints leading from the rail, hot coffee in the cabin. And when I looked over the stern into the water, there they were, 8 shapes, hanging in the water, watching me with eyes that reflected the light. But this time, something was different. This time, they moved. They rose slowly through the water, and as they got closer to the surface, I could see them more clearly. Could see that they were wearing clothes. The same clothes the crew of the Morning Glory would have been wearing. could see that their faces, while wrong in subtle ways, were recognizably human faces. They broke the surface, and one of them spoke. And it was the sound from my dream, water through pipes, waves on hull, something massive surfacing. But underneath that sound, impossibly, I could hear words, "Help us." I stumbled backward, hit the hoist control, started ascending. The 8 figures in the water watched me rise, their heads tilting in perfect synchronization, tracking my movement. "Help us," they said again, all 8 voices at once, layered on top of each other but also synchronized perfectly. "We can't come back. We can't remember how." "What are you?" I shouted down at them. "We were the crew. We are the crew. We went into the water and something changed us. We tried to come back, but we're different now. We don't fit anymore. The boat rejects us. The air rejects us. We can only watch. We can only wait." Wait for what? For others. For more. For enough of us that we can remember what we were. Help us. Come down. Come into the water. Help us remember. I was being pulled into the helicopter now, Chen dragging me through the door. I looked down one last time and saw them diving, disappearing back into the depths. But before they vanished completely, I saw something else. Dozens of other shapes in the water, further down, hanging in the darkness. All the missing crews from all the missing boats suspended in the water column like specimens in formaldehyde, waiting for something. The official report on the Morning Glory was identical to the one for the Catherine Marie. Crew disappeared for unknown reasons. No signs of foul play. Case classified as maritime disappearance, cause unknown. But I knew the truth now. They weren't dead, they were changed. Something in the water, something in the deep water, in the trenches where light doesn't reach, was taking them and changing them into something else. Something that couldn't survive on land anymore but couldn't quite survive in the water either. Something trapped between 2 worlds, unable to return to the life they'd known. And they were conscious. Aware. They knew what had happened to them, knew what they'd lost, and they were desperate to find a way back. Desperate enough to start calling for help. Desperate enough to start trying to lure others down into the water with them. I submitted my resignation from the Coast Guard the next day. It was accepted without question. They gave me a medical discharge, full benefits, a pension. They were happy to see me go. I knew too much. I'd seen too much. And I was starting to talk about it. But resigning didn't help. The knowledge followed me. The dreams got worse. And the cases kept happening, one after another. Boats found empty all along the coast. I moved inland, got as far from the ocean as I could. Found a small town in eastern Oregon, high desert. Nearest body of water was a creek that ran dry half the year. Thought maybe if I got far enough from the ocean, far enough from the water, I could forget what I'd seen. It didn't work because the ocean is patient. The ocean is vast, and the ocean doesn't forget. I started seeing them in town. People who moved wrong, who held themselves stiffly, who had that faint sheen to their skin like they were always slightly wet. People who worked at the grocery store, at the gas station, at the post office. People who smiled at me with mouths that moved wrong. I'd follow them sometimes, watch where they went at night. They always ended up at the creek. Even when it was dry, they'd go to the creek bed and stand there, looking down at the dust and rocks like they were seeing water that wasn't there. And they'd talk to each other in that sound. Water through pipes, waves on hull, something surfacing. And I'd hide and listen and eventually understand what they were saying. They were planning, organizing, spreading inland, moving away from the ocean, following water sources deeper into the continent. They were adapting, learning how to survive further from the salt water that had changed them. And they were recruiting. That's what the empty boats were about. That's what all of it was about. They weren't taking people. They were converting them, changing them, building an army of things that were almost human but not quite, things that could walk among us unnoticed, things that could spread the change to others. I started keeping a gun, loaded, next to my bed. I told myself it was for protection, but I knew the truth. It was in case I saw the signs in myself. In case I woke up one morning with that sheen on my skin, with that wrongness in my movements, with that sound in my voice instead of words. Because I'd been in the water. I'd looked into their eyes. I'd heard them speak. And some part of me, some deep instinctive part, had responded to their call, had wanted to dive in, to join them, to understand what they'd become. And that wanting hasn't gone away. If anything, it's gotten stronger. I dream about the ocean now, even here in the desert. I dream about sinking into cold, dark water, about pressure squeezing me on all sides, about changing into something that can survive down there. And in the dreams, it's not horrible. It's peaceful, it's right. It's where I'm supposed to be. I went back to the coast last month. Told myself I was just visiting, just taking a trip, just checking on something. But I knew why I was really going. I wanted to see them again. Wanted to understand what they'd become. Wanted to see if there was a way back, or if the change was permanent. I rented a boat, went out alone. Sailed to the coordinates where we'd found the Catherine Marie, where it had all started for me. The water was calm, peaceful, beautiful. I cut the engine and drifted, just like those empty boats had drifted. And I waited. It took 3 hours, but eventually they came. Dozens of them, hundreds maybe, rising from the depths. All the missing crews, all the changed people, all the things that used to be human and now were something else. They surrounded my boat, floated there in the water, watching me with those eyes that caught the light wrong. And one of them, maybe Vincent Holloway, maybe someone else I couldn't tell anymore, spoke to me in that water pipe voice. You can come down. You're already changing. We can smell it in you. The water has marked you. You belong to us now. Come down. Come home. And I wanted to. God help me, I wanted to. I stood at the rail, looked down at them, and felt that pull, that calling, that absolute certainty that going into the water would solve everything, would answer every question, would end all the fear and doubt and confusion. My hand was on the rail. I was lifting my leg to climb over, but then I saw my reflection in the water. Saw my face looking back at me, and I saw that it was wrong. Not obviously wrong. At first glance it looked like me, but the more I looked, the more I noticed the little things that weren't right. Eyes slightly too far apart. Mouth that moved differently than it should. Skin with a faint sheen to it. I was already changing. The process had already started. And going into the water now wouldn't save me. It would just accelerate what was already happening. I started the engine, opened the throttle all the way, raced back to shore as fast as the boat could go. Behind me, I could hear them calling, their voices mixing with the sound of the engine, the waves, the wind, calling me back, telling me I couldn't run, telling me I was already one of them. They were right. I can feel it now, every day, every hour. My body temperature is dropping. My skin has that sheen that won't go away no matter how much I dry it. I can hold my breath for impossible lengths of time. And when I talk, sometimes I hear that water pipe sound underneath my words. I'm writing this down because I don't have much time left. Because soon I won't be able to write anymore, won't be able to think in words, won't be able to remember what it was like to be human. If you're reading this, if you work maritime rescue, if you go out on the ocean, listen to me. Don't trust the empty boats. Don't board them. Don't investigate them. Don't try to understand what happened to their crews, because the crews aren't gone. They're waiting, they're watching, they're calling for help. And if you answer that call, if you go to them, if you look into their eyes and hear their voices, you'll become one of them. The ocean is changing us. One by one, boat by boat, crew by crew. And there's nothing we can do to stop it. The Coast Guard knows. The Navy knows. They're not trying to stop it because they can't stop it. They're just trying to slow it down, contain it, keep it from spreading too fast. But it's spreading anyway. Into rivers, into lakes, into landlocked towns like mine. Spreading through anyone who's been in the water, anyone who's heard the call, anyone who's looked into those wrong eyes and felt that pull. I'm going back to the coast tonight, back to that spot where the Catherine Marie drifted. I'm going to anchor there and wait for them to come, and when they do, I'm going to go down, because fighting it is too hard, and I'm too tired, and some part of me that's already changed wants to know what comes next. Maybe I'll see you there someday, in the water, in the deep, in the place where the changed ones gather and wait for more of us to join them. Or maybe you'll see me before that. Maybe I'll be standing at the rail of an empty boat, wearing a life jacket that's still wet, looking down at you with eyes that catch the light wrong. And maybe you'll hear me calling for help. And maybe you'll come. Please don't come. But you will. Because that's what rescue swimmers do. You hear the call, you respond. You see someone in the water, you go in after them. It's your training, your duty, your purpose. It's exactly what we're counting on. The water is calling. I have to go. But before I do, I want you to know one last thing. When you find my boat drifting, when you see my life jacket laid out on the deck, when you look into the water and see me hanging there in the depths, I'm not calling for help, I'm calling for company. The hardest part about this job isn't the cold, or the fear, or the exhaustion. It's knowing when to let go. They teach you in training that you can't save everyone, that sometimes the ocean wins, that making peace with loss is part of the work. But they don't teach you what to do when you save someone who shouldn't be saved. When you pull someone out of the water and realize, too late, that leaving them there would have been the mercy. His name was David Marsh, 43 years old. Solo kayaker, experienced. He'd been reported missing after failing to return from a day trip along the Northern California coast. The call came in at dusk. His wife had found his truck at the launch site. Kayak gone, no sign of him. We launched at full dark. Storm moving in, seas running 8 to 10 feet. The kind of conditions where finding someone alive becomes statistically impossible after the first few hours. We searched for 6 hours. Found nothing. We're about to call it when I saw the strobe light, faint, distant, barely visible through the rain. A miracle. We found him clinging to his overturned kayak, hypothermic but conscious. I went in, got him secured, brought him up. Textbook rescue. Everyone was relieved. Another life saved. But when they pulled him into the helicopter and I saw his face in the cabin lights, something in my chest went cold. He was smiling. Not the smile of someone grateful to be rescued. Not relief or joy or even shock. It was the smile of someone who'd gotten exactly what they wanted. The smile of someone who'd won. "Thank you," he said, his voice perfectly clear despite the hypothermia. "I knew you'd come. I knew if I waited long enough, someone would come." The medical check at the hospital showed impossible results. No hypothermia despite 6 hours in 50-degree water. No signs of exhaustion, no dehydration. His core temperature was normal. His vitals were perfect. "It's like he just got in the water 20 minutes ago," the doctor told me, confused. But that's not possible. He should be dead. David Marsh went home 2 days later. The news ran the story. Miracle rescue. Experienced kayaker survives against all odds. Coast Guard heroes save a life. His wife cried on camera. Everyone was happy, except me. Because I kept thinking about that smile, about the way he'd said, "I knew you'd come," like he'd been planning it, like the whole thing had been deliberate. I started following the news about him. Couldn't help myself. Needed to know I was wrong, that it had just been shock, that he was a normal guy who'd gotten lucky. 3 weeks after the rescue, his wife disappeared, went for a walk on the beach and never came back. They found her shoes at the waterline. Nothing else. A month later, his brother drowned in his backyard pool. 3 feet of water. The autopsy said he'd just laid face down and stopped breathing. No signs of struggle. No drugs or alcohol. He'd simply chosen to drown. 2 months later, David's elderly mother was found in her bathtub. She'd been there for 3 days. The water was still running. Still warm somehow. The plumber said that was impossible. The hot water heater should have run out in hours. But the water stayed hot. I went to see David. Drove to his house without telling anyone. I needed to confront him, needed to understand what he was, what I'd pulled out of the water that night. He was in his backyard, sitting by an inflatable pool. Just sitting there, staring at the water. When he heard me approach, he turned and gave me that smile. "I've been expecting you," he said. "I knew you'd figure it out eventually. You're smart, observant. That's what makes you good at your job." "What are you?" I asked. "I'm exactly what you pulled out of the water," he said. "The question is, what was I before you pulled me out?" "You killed your family. I didn't kill anyone," he said. "I just showed them the water. Showed them what I learned out there during those 6 hours. And they chose to listen. They chose to go in. Just like you'll choose eventually. I'm not going anywhere near the water." He laughed. "You work on the water. You live for the water. It's your purpose, your calling. You can't stay away. And the next time you go in for a rescue, the next time you dive down to save someone, you'll feel it. That pull, that understanding, that knowledge that the ocean isn't trying to kill you, it's trying to teach you something." "What is it trying to teach?" "That we've been living wrong," David said simply. "That we were never meant to leave the water in the first place. That evolution made a mistake when it brought us onto land, and the ocean has been waiting millions of years for us to come home. And now it's calling us back, one by one, using people like me as proof that returning is possible." I left, reported the conversation to the police. They investigated, found no evidence of foul play in any of the deaths. Accidents, coincidences, tragedies. But I knew better. I requested a transfer. Inland, away from the ocean. It was denied. They needed experienced swimmers on the coast. So I stayed. And David was right. The next rescue, when I went into the water, I felt it. That pull, that calling. That voice that wasn't a voice saying, "Stay, stay, let go, sink down, come home." I fought it, completed the rescue, went home. But it's getting harder. Every rescue now, I feel it stronger. The water wants me, and some part of me, the part that touched David Marsh's hand that night, the part that made contact with whatever he'd become during those impossible 6 hours, that part wants to answer. I don't know how much longer I can resist, but I know this. The next person I pull out of the water, I need to look at their face very carefully. Need to see if they're smiling. Need to know if I'm saving someone who should be saved or spreading something that should have stayed in the ocean. Because David Marsh wasn't a survivor. He was patient zero. And I might be patient too. The water is calling. It's always calling now. And one day soon, I'm going to stop fighting and just let it take me. And then I'll be the one floating out there waiting for rescue, smiling when they pull me up, knowing I've won, knowing I've come home. The official record says we saved all 4 of them. That's what it says in the report I signed. That's what it says in the commendation letters we received. That's what the families were told. What the media reported. What went into the Coast Guard's statistics as a successful rescue operation with 0 casualties. 4 souls saved. Mission accomplished. Everyone goes home. The official record is a lie. But I signed it anyway, because telling the truth would have meant admitting things that people aren't ready to hear. Things about what happens when you find survivors in places where survival isn't possible. Things about rescues that succeed too well. It was a February night, the kind where the cold is so complete it feels like it's coming from inside your bones rather than from the air. We got a distress call from a sailboat called Paradise Lost. 36-footer, 4 people aboard, taking on water rapidly about 50 miles offshore. The weather was deteriorating fast. Gale force winds, seas building to 20 feet. We launched knowing it would be tight, that we'd be pushing our fuel margins, that everything would have to go perfectly. It didn't go perfectly. It went better than perfectly. That was the problem. We reached the coordinates in 40 minutes. The Paradise Lost was already going down. Her mast snapped, her deck awash. Through the searchlight we could see 4 figures in the water, clustered together, all wearing life vests, all waving at us. I went down on the hoist. The seas were chaos. The wind was trying to rip me off the cable, and the cold hit like a physical blow the moment I touched water. But I reached the first survivor, a woman, maybe 30, dark hair plastered to her face. "Thank God," she screamed over the wind. "Thank God you're here. We've been in the water for hours." Hours. That word stuck with me even as I secured her in the rescue sling. Hours in water this cold, in seas this rough, should have meant hypothermia, should have meant exhaustion, should have meant at least one of them succumbing before we arrived. But when I checked her, she was strong, alert. Her grip on my arm was firm. She pulled herself into the sling without assistance. The same with the second survivor. A man, older, maybe 55. He practically climbed into the sling himself, his movements quick and coordinated. No signs of hypothermia, no trembling, no weakness. The third was a younger man, early 20s. As I secured him, he looked directly at me and said, "You came at exactly the right time. Exactly when we needed you." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. Not "thank God you came" or "we thought we were going to die." Just that flat statement. Exactly the right time. The fourth was a teenage girl, maybe 16. When I reached her, she wasn't looking at me. She was looking down into the black water below, like she could see something there that I couldn't. "We have to go now," she said, "before it changes its mind." "Before what changes its mind?" I asked as I secured her. She didn't answer, just kept looking down into the water until we lifted off. We got all 4 of them into the helicopter. They were wet and cold but functional. No one was shivering. No one showed signs of shock or hypothermia. They sat quietly, too quietly, as we flew back to base. Lieutenant Chen did the preliminary medical assessment in flight. I watched his face as he checked their vitals, watched his confusion grow with each reading. "Their core temperatures are normal," he said quietly to me. "All 4 of them. 98.6, that's impossible. They should be severely hypothermic after that exposure time." "Maybe they weren't in the water as long as they said," I suggested. "Maybe." But he didn't sound convinced. At the hospital, the doctors found the same thing. Normal vitals across the board. No signs of cold water immersion. no physiological evidence that they'd been fighting for their lives in a North Pacific storm. The woman, her name was Jennifer Hale, gave a statement. She said the boat had hit something around 8 p.m., started taking on water immediately. They'd sent the Mayday, grabbed life vests, and jumped just as the boat went under. They'd been in the water for approximately 3 hours before we arrived. 3 hours in 48-degree water, in 20-foot seas, and they were all fine. The doctors called it a miracle. The media called it incredible survival instinct. We were called heroes. But I couldn't stop thinking about what the girl had said before it changes its mind. I tried to put it out of my head, tried to focus on the positive. We'd saved 4 lives. Perfect rescue. Everyone survived. That's what matters. Then the calls started. The first one came 2 weeks after the rescue. My phone rang at 3 a.m. I answered, half asleep, expecting an emergency call-out. "This is Jennifer Hale," the voice said. "From the Paradise Lost. I need to talk to you about what really happened that night." I sat up, suddenly very awake. "What do you mean, what really happened?" "The boat didn't hit anything," she said. "We didn't take on water. We were fine. We were having a good trip. And then we heard it." "Heard what?" "The singing coming from underwater. It was beautiful. So beautiful that we wanted to get closer to it. We wanted to hear it better. So we jumped in, all 4 of us, voluntarily. We jumped into the water and we swam down, following the sound." "That doesn't make sense. Why would you—" "Because it wanted us to. Because it called us, and we answered. And then, when we were deep enough, when we were far enough from the surface, it showed us things. It showed us what we could become if we stayed. What we would understand if we let go and kept sinking." My hand was shaking. "What did it show you?" "Everything. The whole ocean. Every drop of water on Earth. All connected. All aware. All part of one enormous consciousness that's been here since before land existed, and it was offering us a place in it, offering to dissolve us, absorb us, make us part of something infinitely larger than our small individual lives. But you didn't stay. You came back up." "We didn't come back up," Jennifer said, and her voice was strange now, flat and distant. "We stayed down, we let go, we drowned. We felt our lungs fill with water and we felt ourselves die. It was peaceful, beautiful, the end of fear and pain and loneliness. Then how it changed its mind. At the last second it decided we weren't ready. It pushed us back to the surface, forced the water out of our lungs, restarted our hearts, sent us back to the world we'd tried to leave, but we're not the same. We died down there. What came back isn't what went down." "What came back?" She was quiet for a long moment, then, "I don't know. Something that looks like Jennifer Hale. Something that remembers being Jennifer Hale, but also something that remembers drowning, remembers dissolving into the ocean, remembers being part of something vast and ancient and patient. I'm 2 things now, and I don't know which one is real." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to know what you rescued. Because the others are changing too. Because whatever we brought back with us from the deep water, it's spreading. My husband won't look at me anymore. He says my eyes are wrong. My daughter says I smell like the ocean even after I shower. And at night I can hear them, the other 3 from the boat. I can hear their thoughts in my head. We're still connected, still part of something larger, and it's growing." She hung up. I tried to convince myself it was trauma, psychological breakdown from a near-death experience. I didn't call her back, didn't report the conversation, just tried to forget it. Then the second call came. The older man, Robert Chen. Different time, 4 a.m. this time, but the same kind of message. "We weren't supposed to survive," he said. The ocean made a mistake. It let us go, and now it wants us back. I can feel it pulling me, every moment of every day. The bathtub, the shower, even a glass of water. It all calls to me. It all wants me to come back. Come back where? To where we were. To the depth where we died. It's waiting there, waiting for us to return voluntarily. Because we can go back now. We know the way. We know what it feels like to dissolve, and we can do it again, anytime, in any water. Even a puddle is enough. Even rain, any water is all water. That's not possible. I've tested it, he said. I filled a bowl with tap water, looked into it, and I could see down past the bottom of the bowl, down through miles of connected water, down to where the thing that sent us back is waiting. And it's patient. It knows we'll come back eventually, because we're not really alive anymore. We're just echoes, memories that think they're people. He hung up before I could respond. The third call never came. Instead, I saw the news report. The young man, David Price, had walked into the ocean at midnight. Just walked straight in, fully clothed, and kept walking until the water closed over his head. His body washed up 3 days later. The autopsy showed something impossible. His lungs were full of water, but it wasn't ocean water. It wasn't water from any known source. The salinity was wrong. The mineral content was wrong. It was water, but water that had never existed on Earth's surface before. Water from somewhere else. Somewhere deep. I went to see Jennifer Hale. I needed to know what was happening. Needed to understand what I'd pulled out of the ocean that night. She answered the door, but didn't invite me in. She looked thinner, paler. Her skin had a translucent quality, like I could almost see through it if the light was right. "David's dead," she said. "You heard?" "Yes." "He's not dead," she corrected. "He went back. He returned to the water. He's home now. That's not home. That's death." She smiled, and it was the saddest smile I'd ever seen. "You don't understand. Death is just a transition. A change of state. Water becomes ice, becomes vapor, becomes water again. Nothing is lost. It just changes form. David changed form. He's still here. I can feel him in every drop of rain, every wave, every glass of water I drink. He's everywhere now. Free. Perfect. You're not making sense. I'm making perfect sense. You just don't want to hear it. You want to believe you saved us. You want to believe the mission was successful, but you didn't save us. You interrupted something. You pulled us back from a transformation we'd accepted. And now we're stuck between two states, not quite human, not quite water, not quite anything. What about the girl, Sarah?" Jennifer's expression darkened. "Sarah understands better than any of us. She's already half gone. She spends hours in the bath now, underwater, holding her breath. Gets up to 20 minutes now, 25. Soon she won't need to come up at all. Soon she'll just dissolve and slip down the drain and become part of the water system. Part of everything. I need to stop this. I need to help you. You can't help us. The only thing you could do is let us go back. Let us return to where we were. But you won't do that because you're a rescue swimmer. You save people, even when they don't want to be saved. Even when saving them is the cruelest thing you could do." She closed the door. I reported everything to my superiors. They listened, took notes, and then strongly suggested I take a medical leave. PTSD, they said. Survivor's guilt manifesting as persecution complex. I needed rest, therapy, time away from the job. I refused. I needed to know how this ended. Sarah's parents called the Coast Guard 3 weeks later. Their daughter had disappeared. Left a note saying she was going back to where she belonged, They found her clothes on a beach, neatly folded, her phone on top with a video queued up. I wasn't supposed to see that video, but I have contacts, people who owe me favors. I saw it. Sarah had filmed herself walking into the ocean. It was dawn, the light soft and pink. She walked calmly, steadily, no hesitation. When the water reached her waist, she turned to face the camera. "This is not suicide," she said clearly. "This is going home. Tell the Coast Guard thank you for pulling us out. But we were never meant to stay. We were only meant to deliver a message. The ocean is ready now. It's been practicing, learning. The 4 of us were a test, and we passed. Now it knows how to do it perfectly. How to call people, change them, send them back as messengers. How to spread itself onto land using us as vessels. How to reclaim what it lost when life crawled onto shore millions of years ago. We're going back to the beginning, back to the water. All of us, eventually. The ocean is patient. The ocean is coming. And the ocean always wins." She turned and walked deeper until the water closed over her head. She didn't struggle, didn't fight, just dissolved into the waves like she'd never been solid at all. They never found her body. Robert Chen disappeared a month later. His car was found at a reservoir, empty, doors open. No note, no body, just footprints leading to the water and not coming back. Jennifer Hale lasted the longest. She called me one final time, 6 weeks after the rescue. "I'm in the bathtub," she said. "The water's been running for 3 hours, but it's not overflowing. It's draining somehow, taking me with it. I can feel myself spreading out, becoming part of the water system. Soon I'll be in the pipes, in the ocean, in the clouds, in the rain. Everywhere and nowhere. It doesn't hurt. It's beautiful. Jennifer, get out of the tub. Call 911. Let them help you." "You still don't understand," she said. "We're helping you. We're showing you the way home. Every person we touch, every glass of water we've handled, every surface we've bled on or cried on or sweated on, we've left traces, seeds. And they're growing, spreading. Soon there will be more of us, and then more, and then everyone. Everyone will hear the call. Everyone will understand. Everyone will go home." The line went dead. Not hung up, dead. Like it had been disconnected from underwater. They found her house empty. The bathtub was full of water that wouldn't drain. When the plumbers tried to pump it out, they said the water fought back, that it had a current, that it seemed to be flowing in multiple directions at once. They condemned the house. Last I heard, it's still standing there, tub still full, water still moving in impossible ways. The official record says we saved all 4 of them. Mission successful. Everyone survived. But I know the truth. We didn't save them, we delayed them, interrupted a process that should have been allowed to complete. And in doing so, we created something worse. 4 people trapped between 2 states, spreading their transition like a disease, leaving traces of ocean consciousness wherever they went. And the worst part, I can feel it now, that pull, that calling. Every time I shower, every time I drink water, every time I'm near the ocean. Something in me recognizes something in the water, something that was transferred when I touched them, when I pulled them from the deep, when I made contact with whatever they'd become during those moments when they'd drowned and been sent back. I'm changing too. Slowly, but inevitably. My body temperature drops a fraction of a degree every week. I can hold my breath longer than I should. And at night, I dream about dissolving, about spreading out into the water cycle, about becoming part of something vast and ancient and patient. The ocean is patient. It can wait for me. It can wait for all of us. Because the official record is a lie, and everyone who reads it becomes part of the lie, and the lie itself Is the message spreading through water, through words, through thoughts? The mission was successful. Everyone survived. Everyone survived. Everyone. Everyone is still surviving, spreading, changing, becoming water, becoming ocean, becoming the thing that called them home. And I'm writing this in the shower. The water's been running for an hour. I should turn it off, should step out, should call for help. But the water is so warm, so welcoming, so much like home. The official record says we saved all 4 of them. The truth is, they saved us. From being human, from being separate, from being alone. The water is rising around me now, or I'm sinking into it. I can't tell which anymore, but I can feel them. Jennifer and Robert and David and Sarah, all around me, in every drop, welcoming me home, telling me the mission is finally complete. Everyone survives. Everyone goes home. Everyone becomes water in the end.